What if I told you that one of the most unique artists working today spent decades creating masterpieces completely in secret? I mean, an artist whose work is now blowing people away, but whose name you probably don't even know. Well, this is the story of Greg Deda, a hidden genius who is finally stepping into the light.
Right? That's the big question, isn't it? For years, the art world didn't really have an answer. He was out there working, creating these huge collections of just stunning paintings, but he was almost a ghost, completely outside of the public eye.
I mean, this line just says it all. For decades, his brilliance lived in silence. Just think about that for a second. Imagine painting these incredible, dreamlike worlds, knowing how powerful they are, but having almost no one to show them to. That was his reality. So let's put some facts to the name. Greg Deda is a Canadian artist, born back in 1965. And for most of his life, he's just been quietly honing his craft, making these extraordinary works that, are only now starting to get the attention they've always deserved. So let's get into the journey of this artist, who a lot of people are now calling an unrecognized superstar. It's a really fascinating look at how true talent can, eventually, find its moment. To really understand his art, we have to go way back to where it all started for him. And for Deda, that meant looking centuries into the past, to the absolute masters of the Italian Renaissance. So he was born in Toronto, but in 1996, he makes this huge, pivotal decision. He packs up and moves to Italy to study. And he's not just studying art, he's studying the very foundations of classical technique, totally immersing himself in the world of the old masters.
And he wasn't just, admiring them from afar. He was literally deconstructing their methods. He dug into their symbolism, their incredible gift for telling a story in a single frame, and even the super technical, layered way they applied paint to make their canvases come alive. But then his journey takes this incredibly sharp turn. From the classical, structured world of Renaissance Italy, he dives headfirst into the chaotic, revolutionary energy of Germany right after the Berlin Wall came down. And trust me, this experience would change everything about his art. So his entire education becomes this study in contrasts. On one hand, you've got the super defined rules and ancient techniques of the Renaissance. And on the other, you have the raw, experimental freedom of this new wave of German artists who are basically reinventing their world. He ends up at the Kunstschule, surrounded by absolute giants of modern art, like Gerhard Richter and Jörg Immendorff. He wasn't just reading about them in a book. He was right there, absorbing the creative spirit of a country being reborn. But here's the key. He didn't copy their style. What he took from them was something way more profound. It was permission. Permission to break all those classical rules he had just worked so hard to master. Permission to unlearn, to take risks, and to just experiment without being afraid to fail. So what happens when you smash these two completely different worlds together? Well, for Deda, it led him to develop two distinct but equally powerful artistic languages, what he calls magic realism and pure abstraction. His magic realism is all about story and symbols. It pulls you into these surreal, almost dreamlike worlds. But his abstraction? Whoa, that's a completely different animal. It's visceral, it's emotional. He actually once described it as being like heavy metal music. It's all about that raw, vibrant, in-your-face energy. Okay, so to really get his magic realism paintings, you kind of need to learn their secret language. Deda uses the same symbols over and over again, and they all carry these deep, specific meanings. So come on, let's decode a few of them. First up, trees. Whenever you see a tree in his work, it's not just part of the landscape. They actually represent individuals. They're silent witnesses in the painting, holding just as much emotional weight as any of the people. You'll also see a lot of water and bridges. These are super important. They represent isolation and separation. They're like the boundary markers between our normal reality and the surreal dream world he's built on the other side. And finally, trains. Now, unlike cars, which he says make him think of the past, his trains are this powerful symbol of pure optimism. They stand for hope, the future, civilization, freedom, just this forward-moving energy carrying good news. So for decades, all this symbolism, all this technique, it all existed in silence. But very recently, that silence was broken in a very public and very loud way. The art market finally came knocking. Check this out. At the Tate Ward auction in London, one of his abstract pieces came up for sale. Now, the estimate was already pretty strong, but the final price, well, that confirmed he had officially arrived on the world stage.
£50,000. Now that's a huge sale for any artist. But here's the part that makes this story absolutely wild. In the very same auction, this one painting by a guy nobody knew outperformed works by household names like Banksy, Warhol, and Hirst. Just wow. And I think this quote from the man himself really gets to the heart of why his work is hitting so hard right now. In a world that wants everything to have a simple answer, his paintings offer something else entirely. They offer the freedom to look, to feel, and to find your own meaning in the mystery. So after all those years working in the shadows, Greg Deda has arrived. The art world is finally catching up. The only question now is, what's he going to create now that he's in the spotlight?